Hello there, and thank you for joining us once again from wherever you are. We're coming to you live from our studios here in Kokomlemle on digital address GA0992539. Let's go through our top stories this hour. Manifestos of the two main political parties are out. What is your verdict? Today, we focus on the newly launched opposition NDC's manifesto and the big push, $10 million infrastructure promise. Just how will the party pull this off? Phyllis Kwachefoso is designated spokesperson on infrastructure. He is my guest for today. You can join us in that conversation. Civil society organizations demand parliamentary intervention to stop government from going ahead with the controversial Agyapa deal as they accuse the finance ministry of massaging figures on revenue accruing from gold royalties. Also coming up, 6 lives lost so far, farmlands and properties destroyed, but the devastating effect of the Bagre Dam spillage and rains is worsening days after it started. We're live in the Upper East region once again for the latest update. Join us on DSTV 421, Gold TV 144, and we're streaming live on YouTube. We're also streaming live on myjoyonline.com and on Facebook. You can also send us a message on 0540109009. My name is Gifty Andopia. This is The Pulse. Please be my guest. Welcome to the show. I'll take you through the details of those stories and more. Now, civil society organizations are calling on Parliament to intervene and stop government from going ahead with the Agyapa deal as they accuse the Finance Ministry of massaging figures on revenues accruing from gold royalties. At a media briefing in Accra, the CSOs insisted they are not backing down on their calls for a suspension of the deal. The 22 CSOs say their recent meeting with the Finance Minister revealed more questions about the deal. We'll hear from them shortly. But for those of you who are lost about this deal, we put together 9 budding questions surrounding the deal. So those are some of the budding questions that the CSO are asking, that a lot of Ghanaians are asking. We'll put them together for you. Dr. Steve Mantel spoke on behalf of the civil society organizations, saying they are still not convinced that the deal is good for this country.
Ghana cannot expect the market to give a favorable valuation of the IPO, which the minister himself states will be about 0.6 to 3.2 times the asset value. This indicates that Ghana is just gambling on the market for the determination of the value of an important revenue stream to the state. The interesting thing for citizens to appreciate is that through government's communication, it is evident that it is either not paying attention to the revenue flows in the sector or deliberately undervaluing the assets for unknown reasons. When a direct question was posed to the Deputy Minister of Finance on the amount of royalties received from gold in 2019, he said Ghana received about 650 million cedis, equivalent of $123 million. The truth is that Ghana received 1.06 billion cedis, equivalent to $200 million, from the big companies under the Chamber of Mines alone. Government has data on the other receipts, yes, yet it decided to underreport the numbers.
Finance Minister Ofori has insisted that the deal is transparent, as all the processes have been public since 2018. But Director of the African Center for Energy Policy, Ben Boakye, insists the consultations were not adequate. He criticizes Parliament for not doing a good job on the deal.
In terms of the whole arrangement?
I want to avoid that part. I want to avoid that part. You see, there are substantive issues. I think people had, concerns about individuals that were seen to be part of the transaction. You're talking about senior persons in government or people aligned to senior persons in government. So, it was all right for people to raise concerns about how those people, were selected and, became part of the process and leading it. But that shouldn't push us away from the substantive questions about how the resource, has been valued.
But looks like the minister has made that an issue. He makes the point that pained him, and even at the first instance, it made him discount the letter. Just making the point, could the CSOs have been more moderate in how you put out some of these issues, so that then you cannot help but focus on the substantive issue than the things that in this case the finance minister ended up using as a basis to then discount your initial statement?
No, I don't think he should discount the statement. I think he should rather answer the questions about, how some people were selected to be part of the transaction. And I think that's the crux of the matter. Rather than complaining about it, you rather answer it and clarify it. And
they've explained, for example, that ALA got involved through Heighten case and that they didn't recruit ALA directly. They mentioned a global recruitment firm that ended up recruiting Osafomafo's son, Kofi, to actually serve as consultants, are waiting for him to become chief executive. You find this dissatisfactory in terms of all these explanations?
It's never been satisfactory. I mean, why would you do headhunting for such a massive project? I mean, we know hundreds of people on the stock market. We know a number of Ghanaians with experience, to be part of this process. So it can't be a headhunt, particularly when you have persons who are politically exposed. You need to really be thorough and rigorous about how you select such individuals to actually lead it. And you would have answered all the questions, by going through the due process of competition. As we speak, you and I don't even know that process, unless what you have been told that it happened. But these days, recruitments are open, emails are sent around, publicized on websites, for people to actually go and see what actually happened with that process. So there was something wrong there, but we can go beyond that and ask, the critical questions that really border on why we want to do this kind of transaction.
If you will come to the critical questions as you're trying to draw attention to, but will you admit as CSOs that you also slept on the job right from 2008 when the law itself was passed to allow for these transactions, and that if you had done your jobs then, things would have been different today? In the spirit of the demand for accountability, will you, the CSOs, admit that?
We never sleep on the job. We are not government appointees. We are not paid by government. We deliver based on our resources and our capacity, okay? I don't have a rep in Parliament and to be sniffing what law is before Parliament. In good faith and good governance, we have always had interface with government, sharing laws that are being passed. And that's how we come by laws, right? Government ministries will share a draft with you, you work on it, you raise your concerns, you have workshops to discuss that. And that has been the process, okay? So if you don't share it with me and you expect that by magic I should know what is happening in Parliament when I don't have the resources.
It's a public process. The media reported when even the original act was passed in 2018. When it went through second reading, there were media reports to that effect. Still, CSOs didn't see any possible red flag. The media may not have raised those red flags, but at least if you had taken attention of some of those and followed that, you would have seen some of these. You still stand by your position that you did what you're supposed to do, things are just blowing back now, and it's just government that should be blamed, not you listeners. You
are assuming that I'm always listening to radio, I'm always watching TV. That is not it. We are traveling across the country, across the region, across the world, doing similar works. So good governance and transparency requires that you bring people into the process. And they didn't do that. Nobody blames civil society for this. It was poor governance to start with, not to encourage citizens to see the document you want to take through a process. Even before it goes to Parliament, you have to share the document. And that's been the process of policy making. We have ample evidence in petroleum laws and mining laws where letters are written to us. We have letters from ministries before. So before a law is even passed, you may have received 3 letters, right? From the ministry, and reviewed. They could send another one before it goes to Parliament. Parliament will also send a letter to you requesting for input. So that's the governance process. Don't leave it to the media. Engage people. And they didn't do that. So you can't use anything else as an excuse to justify why you pass those things under those cover. And we know what happens in Parliament. What happens in Parliament is that when a bill or a law comes before Parliament, the Committee of Parliament is assigned the right or the role to go and interrogate and look at the bill and present a report to plenary. When that report comes to plenary, the rule of Parliament is that it shall not be debated until 48 hours has elapsed. The common sense on that arrangement is to allow my MP, who was not on the committee, to at least get a sense of what the committee has done, peruse it, and raise questions on my behalf. What they do is that when the report gets to the plenary, they suspend the Order 81 and pass it there and then. So you have 275 MPs, 25 goes to sit, under the sponsorship of the executive, right? And then they bring the report. And then nobody else has the power or the opportunity to go and review the report that the committee has done. And we call that good governance. That cannot be good governance.
So what would be the expectation of Parliament in the light of all the issues that have come up? At the level of leadership, Speaker Michael Kwe, who virtually oversaw all of these processes. What's your expectation in the light of all these?
No, I think Parliament has gotten weaker in terms of governance, good governance over the time. And I haven't seen a Parliament that is more secretive than this current one, because you hardly get memos, you can hardly get a letter sent to you. And that is an indictment on how Parliament has functioned in recent times. And I think we need to really look at that and allow the orders of Parliament to work and allow people to participate in good governance. And yeah.
Is there anything they can do about this Agyapa deal itself?
The Agyapa deal is not going anywhere. It's still a government, as we are told, it's still a Ghana government company. We are hoping to sell. We can decide not to sell, right? And that's what we are saying. Decide not to sell now, let's have a conversation on that. And it's everything within the power of Ghana to deliver that. Parliament can call the minister to say that based on the conversation that is ongoing, halt the process, let's have a look at it. And I think it's within the power of the President of Parliament to halt the process at this point.
The final question would be, so the argument that it's out of the woods already, it's actually done with, what can be done is further conversation to improve the current agreement as has been laid out and not to suspend or even revoke its implementation. You think that argument is uncalled for?
No, I think that posturing is the reason why we held this conference. It's even worrying to say that you are going to consult chiefs, you're going to consult trade unions, but you're not going to change your position. Essentially what you're saying is that you're going to educate them about things that the public have a problem with, things that experts have a problem with. So it's not a good posturing to say it's a done deal and therefore we're going ahead. We need to decide as a country whether we want to sell our royalties or we want to keep it as a revenue source.
Ben Ken Boache there speaking to Joseph Opoku Gakpo. Now, Finance Minister Ken Ofori on Newsfire last Saturday rejected claims of under-evaluation. He says the CSOs misconstrued the state capital in the deal as the market value. According to him again, the real value of the commodity will be established after it is put on the stock market.
Which valuation, also you price at the point of which you've done the roadshow and you're about
giving
to
up to, as they say, 3 years. And you're talking about a signing for, as it were, in perpetuity. And they say they were giving only 3 years of cash flow. And that's not sufficient enough to assess them to make, take a good oversight responsibility for the people.
Samson, what do you have? There's fact and there's truth, right. Okay? And I think we need to be clear about that. So in terms of historicals as to what the value of our royalties are and projections, I guess in a sense 3 years will give you the most insight into everything else. It's a projection. So once you have the 3 years, you have a clear view of what is going. But the issue going forward with these transactions of valuation is that in the end, you are going to do this as a multiple of the net asset value compared to what else is on the market. And that's what happens. Yeah. In the same way in which I go to Parliament, I ask for their forbearance and they give me approval to go and get $3 billion. Now, as to whether it's going to be 41 years, it's going to be 6.875%, etc., I can't even begin to do that. And that's $3 billion, okay? So we are looking at an issue of 500 million, for example, if we wanted to just do nominal. So the fact of the matter is that, yes, there was a 3-year cash flow in which we understood. Everything else is projection. Dividend policy you can't declare, except that when you look at comparables, you know that they typically do 30%. So it's not a question of mischief or trying to keep information away from Parliament. So you cure that and you move. So what are we trying to do for the nation, and we move on that.
He also described as false claims that the Attorney General was not part of the process. He says the advice of the Attorney General, even at the cabinet level, was
it does baffle me because the principle, at least for me, what I work with when there is a transaction of some sort, it's really to dig deeper than what purportedly has been done. I'm not sure what we did not give parliamentarians through the Finance Committee in the various meetings that we had. What I don't know is I don't know the final price, so I can't give that. I don't know what else is a mystery, really. When we talk about this transaction,
they say that, for example, they wanted to be able to investigate into the background of this particular entity. They were not giving any details about the entity.
Samson, this is just a phone call.
Okay.
And you know the way in which, because of AML, CFT issues, the way in which responses are done. To find out what myth is about is Ghana Registrar General's Department. To find out details of a company incorporated in Jersey, it's really a phone call away. So we can make, a meal out of this and create this sense of lack of information. But truly, I think we need to get to the substantive part of this.
Yes.
And that it makes me very nervous when we talk about that, because really, of all of these, so even with bills and acts that we go to Parliament with, we have a retreat, we go through things, they say no, we change. So that dialogue to be interpreted as the AG not being part of it, it's palpably wrong. The AG is supposed to interrogate anything you bring and she may have a different view. You discuss it, and then she understands how far she wants you to go. And the Republic as a preeminent reason why she does things. So that dialogue cannot be misconstrued as AG not participating.
In respect of that, the Imani asked a question.
Yeah.
How was Cabinet able to approve a deal in March 2020 when as late as May 28th, 2020, the Attorney General was complaining of not having seen the 4 main agreements involved in the transaction besides the relationship agreement? What exactly was presented to Cabinet to review and approve? That's a legitimate question.
Oh, it can be, you know.
Finance Minister Ken Ofori Atta earlier on Saturday when he spoke with Samson Ladi. You're still watching The Pulse with me, Gifty and up here. Let's take a very quick break. When we return, we'll take a look at the manifesto of the NDC. A lot of promises. How do they intend to pull this off? We want to hear from you as well. So send us a message on 0540 109009. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the show. Many thanks for staying with us. From absorption of 50% fees of university students next academic year to the provision of free primary health care and also free seedlings for cocoa farmers under agriculture, captured under the theme Jobs, Prosperity for All, the People's Manifesto, according to the NDC, is a rescue mission. Is it mere rhetoric, or Ghanaians are really looking forward to being rescued? Were you convinced with a 143-page document manifesto? Well, you will get to have your say on this show. A lot of you have already been reacting to these promises, and we'll break it down as much as we can and do some analysis. But before we go into that, take a look at some of the promises put together in a news desk report.
Mr. Mahama was joined by his running mate, Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman, and a host of other top party brains to highlight portions of the manifesto. At least 18 items are directly listed as free in the document. The opposition party is promising free primary health care, free tablets to facilitate teaching and learning.
We also recognize that many inequities that virtual learning during this pandemic has laid bare. So we will provide free laptops to tertiary students to facilitate participation in online classes.
Expand the free SHS program to cover students in private senior high schools in underserved or deprived areas, among others.
We have every plan and desire to make the free SHS much better by ensuring that its numerous challenges are addressed and that higher operational and academic standards are introduced and sustained. To do this, we will abolish the double track system. And as His Excellency has already said, we will complete all abandoned structures for secondary and technical education. This includes the score of e-blocks abandoned by this government for no justifiable reason. These measures will allow us to cater for current and future students. And we plan to make the free SHS more inclusive by expanding it to cover students in private senior high schools.
Other pledges include free Wi-Fi in schools.
We will also establish free Wi-Fi zones in all public and private tertiary institutions, universities.
Free technical and vocational education at the secondary and tertiary levels, and a free national apprenticeship program.
It is a plan to provide the free technical and vocational education at the secondary and tertiary levels,
and free education for persons with disabilities. Beyond these freebies, big-ticket pledges include the creation of 1 million sustainable jobs in the first year of the Mahama administration. That is, if he wins.
The US $10 billion accelerated infrastructure plan, dubbed the Big Push, will create jobs for the multitude of our people.
The NDC says it will slash by half the tuition fees for tertiary education in the 2020-2021 academic year.
We know how COVID-19 has impacted an already weak economy and personal finances. And we must not let this become another barrier to opportunity. That is why the next NDC administration will absorb 50% of fees for tertiary students for the 2020-2021 academic year.
Mr. Mahama, who has led the nation in the past, knows that achieving all these may not come easy.
We will be able to implement this project, this manifesto. I know it's not going to be easy because we are looking at the numbers. We know we're going to inherit a very tattered economy. For those who pride themselves on economic management, I mean, they should really feel ashamed to hand over an economy like this to another administration.
The party is also seeking to amend the National Pensions Act 2008, Act 766, and they are looking to do this to allow workers who have contributed for a period of 10 to 15 years to use their contributions as collateral to access mortgage loans. Listen to the flag bearer.
Amend the National Pensions Act 2008, Act 766, to improve both service delivery and financial efficiency of the SNIT pension scheme. Allow contributing workers, such as private teachers, amongst others, who lose their jobs suddenly due to natural occurrences, such as COVID-19 pandemic, to be paid stipends while they search for a new job. And this is important. Allow workers who have contributed for a minimum period of 10 to 15 years to use their contribution as collateral to access mortgage loans for housing. We will pay pensioners, and they'll be happy about this, an annual 13th month bonus.
Well, that's not all. The party also outlines a social housing plan to deliver a minimum of 20,000 low-income houses in all 260 metropolis, municipalities and districts. So let's take a look. Let's try and do some analysis on this subject because it affects all of us, where to lay our heads. Joining me via Zoom for this conversation is Professor Divina Haji, Head of Department of the Center for Settlement Studies, KNUST. I have Professor Divina Haji. He's Head of Department at the Center for Settlement Studies, Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology. Prof, thank you very much for your time this afternoon. I believe we can have a better conversation now. If you do hear me, what's your assessment of the housing part, of the NDC's manifesto?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think earlier you asked me about my general impression. The Sustainable Development Goal 11 is just 10 years away. And we are mandated to use infrastructure which includes housing to build a functional and inclusive society. But with our current deficit of which is hitting around 3 million, and with these policies coming from the parties, which one will say in the short term are relevant, you can see that with the deficit and what we are doing, they are just scratching the surface and not really addressing the main problem of increasing the housing supply to be able to meet the housing demand.
Okay.
And so as you saw from the clip, the gentleman was saying that if, for instance, this mortgage issue is going to cover everybody. So that brings back the question, where are really the houses for everybody to get on board? And so while this could be a good guide, we still need to think about how we are going to increase the housing supply, because that is the critical issue we are facing now.
And I like the way you put it. You say that that's a critical issue we're facing now. One of the things I want you to help us with, Doc, if you can, Prof, if you can list for me maybe about 5 key critical issues we have when it comes to housing. Then we can take a look at what the NDC is proposing and how that addresses these problems. So I will list for you the things that they've, in summary, the things that they're promising, and then I take your thoughts on how it helps us deal with those critical issues. But what if you just look through your mind, what are the key critical issues we have when it comes to housing?
When it comes to housing, the first major issue is to make sure that you have a very good mortgage system which is operating at 100%, so that everybody, based on income, can access. You see, and then you make sure that you have the housing supply to meet that. And then, of course, the housing supply will have to come with job creation and people having jobs. And so if these 3 things are available, then you are sure that you can get a lot of people on the housing ladder, and then those who are struggling, you can now have targeted programs to solve their problems. But as it is now, these things are not there. And so that's why I'm saying that whatever is happening now is just scratching the surface in a short-term situation.
Okay, so let's take a look. You say whatever is happening now is scratching the surface. If you take the, I'm not sure you have the manifesto there, but I have it in front of me here. And on the page 88, starting essentially from 87, it talks about the infrastructural development agenda. They're committing $10 billion to this agenda, but we'll focus on housing. In terms of housing, the NDC says it will, within the 4 years, create 20,000 low-income houses in all 260 metropolis municipalities and districts. Does that not address one of the critical issues you've raised?
That is good to hear, even the term social housing, which comes into the affordable bracket. But then it means that I want to be very clear what they mean by social housing. Are they suggesting that if people are not able to meet those housing, they are going to be giving subsidies to get on it? Because social housing is somewhere for the lowest of the lowest, and where the lowest cannot even get on it, then the government must support them to get onto the housing ladder. But then coming to the 20,000, when you have a housing deficit of 3 million, and you say you are going to put up 20,000. So I think that what we have to do as a nation is a very pragmatic, long-term housing delivery program. For instance, when you take Malaysia in the year 1998, in their Vision 2020, they said they were going to build 800 houses. And by 2004, they have delivered over the 800. That is what we call an ambitious housing program for a country which sees the housing situation as in crisis. But 20,000 houses, well, it will solve part of the problem for some small number of people, but in the long run, we are not addressing the housing situation, as we all admit that it is a dire situation.
Okay, Prof, I'll have you, tilt your camera down a little bit because I'm losing part of your head in that, in my view right now. But then let me come to, again, an issue you raised. You say that if you talk about social housing has a component of government support for the low of the lowest, you say. In terms of that, the NDC is promising to implement a national mortgage assistance scheme and rent-to-pay agreement over 15 to 20 years for public sector workers and workers in private employment. That should work.
So in that case, they are trying to take care of people who are relatively having secure income and could get onto the housing ladder anyway. Because the benchmark is that normally your expenditure exceed 30% of your income. Okay, but then if you take the income situation in this country, it's so low that some people are spending it. For instance, those who live normally in compound houses, they normally spend around 10% of their income on housing. That is why they live in such conditions. So if you are going to give them something which is a decent housing, then it means that it is going to exceed the 30%. And when people fall into that situation, that is where government has to come in with subsidy and turn into social housing. Otherwise, to make sure that the houses have been designed such that it is able to contain the amount that they can pay. So I see it as a positive sign, although as somebody said in the first interview that you had, that where are the houses to get all the people on board? So it means that we need to be building category of houses for different category of people. You take the income bracket and then you build specific houses so that everybody can have a house to be on the housing ladder. But if it becomes just putting one block of house or one particular type of housing and assume that everybody should get on it, you will find out that a lot of people are going to lose out of it.
And with people losing out of it, there's also the part of the manifesto or the promise that talks about how this social housing is going to be constructed. They're saying that they will be soliciting land from traditional authorities, and these traditional authorities will be allocated some of the land. Says a number of the units will be allocated to the traditional authorities to compensate them for the value of the land acquired. Apart from that, it also says as much as practicable, the materials to be used will be sourced locally. That also brings to the point you made about job creation and employment creation. So in the course of building this project itself, the idea or the belief, as I see here, is to also create jobs that enables people to be able to afford the housing even when they're available.
Yeah. So I think these are the things that we expect the government to be, getting the issue about the land, because our self-built approach of housing is land is about accessibility, and so the accessible land goes to the highest bidder, and that is why the poorer cannot even find land to build on. That is the reason why you find that those who are poor normally build on areas which we claim are classroom or something you call half plot. It does not really exist, because the accessible land has gone to the highest bidder. And so, as they said, one of the best ways to see how to be able to come into agreement with the chief to be able to take over the land and to get the housing done. And so, as they said, local materials. But you see, we have heard this before. So many years, the issue of local materials has come on board.
Yeah.
1970s, during the oil crisis, we did a lot in this country on sustainable materials. Later, it turned out to be white elephant. I attended a program somewhere in 2010 where the idea was that they were going to increase the use of brick into housing by 50% by the year 2015. We have passed 2015. So sometimes our leaders, we want the action, but while they are speaking, let's see whether this time it's going to work.
Yeah.
If it's really going to work and they are going to put such measures in place, then that will be fine. But you see, when you talk about social housing, for instance, in the UK where they practice it a lot, you don't depend much on private sector to build social housing. You depend on NGOs and housing associations, where there's a housing fund somewhere. So I will be expecting to see a housing fund specifically for the social housing that they want to build.
Okay.
Because otherwise, they might go into a venture and it will turn out to be not affordable anymore as they expected.
And of course, we've seen a lot of such, affordable housing projects begin under both the NPP and the NDC that never ended. Some are still, at uncompleted levels. And one of the biggest questions I want to ask, which we'll wrap up with, is feasibility, which I think you touched on briefly. But you talked about access to land. And it's another thing that they address here in their manifesto. The NDC says that the NDC government will end the crisis, as it puts it, of access and cost of securing affordable land. And it has a list of things here that it wants to do. For lack of time, let me see if I can just quickly touch on a few of them for you so it gives you perspective. It says that it will review the principles underlying LAP in collaboration with development partners to develop a comprehensive policy to make land acquisition simple, less cumbersome, investor-friendly, and affordable to the average Ghanaian. And I'm wondering, with the issues we have with land acquisition in this country, where people have lost their lives, properties have been lost, and it never ends, I don't know how this is possible. What do you think?
This, in terms of administrative procedures, will facilitate easy access of land. But then, land is about accessibility, and it goes to the highest bidder. And so whether the procedure is simple, land is, the cost is still going to be, the land price is still going to be going to the highest bidder. To the extent that the poorest of the poorest will be denied land to build on. And so I would want to see a scheme where they are coming in with some incentive to support the poorer people who want to acquire land. I think that is what I would expect to see, including what they are suggesting.
Okay.
So that the poorer people who are also, there are many poorer, or let me use the word, who are doing their big to try to own a house for themselves. But because of the land situation, they cannot access it and have to get onto what we call house plots and flood-prone areas, and sometimes they pay money and then the land is taken away from them. They are going through a lot of problems, and that is where government should come in with a strong plan to be able to support them in terms of making the land accessible to them.
Okay. We were hoping, actually, had spoken to what their designated spokesperson on infrastructure, or the infrastructure bit of the manifesto, Phyllis Kwachefosu, but it's been difficult to reach him. My producers have been trying to reach him. We've not been able to reach him, but then we would have loved to put some of the issues you have raised to him and try and get an understanding. So this 10 billion that's been allocated, it would have been good, I believe, to know how much of it is allocated, for example, to social housing, as they put it, here.
Fine. In terms of like a revolving fund or something like that.
Yeah, but we don't. I don't know if it's there, and I have not seen. But I have not seen it, and I'd like to find out from your perspective, from a $10 billion fund, for example, how much will be ideal to allocate to social housing?
Well, at this point, it will be a bit difficult to put the figures in, because we need to know. In terms of income levels, the people they are trying to target for the social housing, So I think that should be one of the main things that we should be able to do before we can put the figures in. But then what I'm suggesting is that if they really want to do it for it to succeed, because it has happened somewhere, for instance, in Malaysia, they did the same thing. By the time they placed the houses, it was not affordable. So these are things that they have to learn from other experiences and be able to work towards it. Yeah.
So the creation of a fund for social housing.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Very well. And I'm not sure if this is part of your core area, but when it comes to revenue generation for such ventures, are there specific places that government can look at? Because they're told us 10 billion. We don't know where the $10 billion is going to come. $10 million is going to come from, and that's one of the questions I was hoping to ask when Mr. Kwachefosu joins us. He hasn't, but where would you envisage that for housing, something as important as housing, that we will look to generate the revenue from?
Well, if they are lucky, once they are in government, they are lucky to take government. They have to think about maybe some tax situation that they can use to generate that. And also, you know, sometimes you have to try to reap a bit from those who spend a lot in other forms of housing to benefit the poor. You know, so I'm looking at those who are putting up mansions, you know, trying to have some kind of little tax that can be used to go and service the poor in that way. But that is something that maybe they need to debate and discuss going forward before they can really put it into practice.
Yeah, I'll take your final words on this. If you look at the whole, everything that I have read to you and every discussion that we've had, is this plan feasible? Is it feasible?
What is happening is that housing is an urban issue, and it is derived or driven by market forces, we know. But at the same time, it is also a social need, and that is why all over the world, it is also practiced as a welfare system. You know, and for the NDC, especially, who are a social democratic party, it means that they have to be looking at housing from the social democrat perspective. You know, which I know is difficult because our economy also drives on market forces. But then there are other forms like the cooperative approach or the liberal approach, which use all other means to try and target segmented people, which they are trying to do now. But at the moment, the scope is narrow. You know, you don't know which category of people they are looking at. So I think that if they look at social housing in that perspective, it will inure to their benefits. And so going into the future, we should be aware that the sustainable development goals is just 10 years away. And we have to use infrastructure to build an inclusive society.
Okay.
But if you're not careful, the way things are with the slum population growing, you might be using housing to rather build a dysfunctional society instead of a functional society. And this goes to I mean, all governments. I mean, as a nation, I'm talking as a sense of national development.
Right. Prof, thank you so much. And I've seen that you've repeated the SDG goal, you know, target year about twice already. I see that's a very important part of the conversation. Prof, thank you so much. Professor Divine Haji is the head of Department Center for Settlement Studies, KNUST, who helped us with that conversation. Like I said, we had booked the designated spokesperson on infrastructure for the NDC, Phyllis Kwachefosu, and we have not been able to reach him at this point. I'd like to hear from you, by the way. Send me your messages or your thoughts about these promises, especially when it comes to housing, especially when it comes to the infrastructure promise as well, on 0540109009. But what are workers saying about this pension plan? Listen.
And you've been contributing to Senate. This should be good news to you too.
It will be good, but if you build a house, the junior staff, how much they you taking? The pay is how much? When you build a house, they give the workers the contribute the Senate. The go fee pay. The workers go fee pay the house. If the house will be 500 million or 1 billion, the workers go fee pay to get the house. But half for the good thing, be good at good thing, but the workers will not go fit because we look the salary the people, the junior staff take. If you build a house, they go fit get that house. So half for me, the thing is, if we build a house, they no go help the junior staff. They go here, but it go fit helps the senior staff and senior members, and the people with the salary go up. But how for the junior staff there, they no go fit help them because the salary, the Senate, how much you go get the Senate. So how for the good is the good thing.
Great. So he makes a point that it's not cast in stone really for the workers. He makes a point that some of the workers don't even earn so much to be able to contribute so much to the fund that I'm talking about, SNIT. And so if there's not so much in their pension fund, how is it possible that they are going to mortgage that against a house which you know the value of buildings, which is not a child's play? And so he thinks that it's a good idea that would rather seem to benefit members of senior staff, or people who are earning a bit higher, not for junior staff whose contribution to SNIT is really nothing to write home about. But I mean, generally it's a concept, so that maybe senior staff could go in for 3 bedrooms or 4 bedrooms or 2 bedrooms, or junior staff could find their own. Pay your contribution, you could get maybe a 1-bedroom self-contained or a single room. Either ways, that's still housing for you that is in your name, and you get to use it for what you like, correct?
Oh, that one is good. It's a good thing. Maybe my senior brother talk. Maybe when they camp power, they talk. When they camp power, they know they do. But if they do that thing is good. Because plenty people, when they go pension, they don't get a place to sleep.
Let me come in. The whole issue is that what he is talking about is that per his contribution, he feels that his contribution cannot do that. But I also feel that it cut across to everybody. Every room has its actual sizes, you have to go for it. For example, if you are going for 3 bedroom, then he knows that you are earning so well, why should you go for that 3 bedroom? But if you know you are not earning so much, you go to your size. So I think that if the NDC government wants to come and implement this thing, I know definitely they will put the houses on sizes. Whereas if you're a junior staff, you want to go for it, you go for your size. So I think it's a very good idea. But what I'm talking is that they shouldn't come and say this thing, whilst workers will follow them to vote for them, then later on they turn themselves. Because where we are now, we have heard so many things concerning free education. They've implemented free education. The NPP implemented the National Health Insurance is still working, and the free education also is still working. But they said they also implemented that they're going to manufacture or dig a dam. Up to now, we haven't seen the actual dam they've done now. You see, so we think if they are giving the promises to us, they should try and implement the promises. Then when someone also is coming, the person also give a promise. He also make sure he also implement it.
But tell me the implications of this, because in mortgaging, we know how mortgaging works, so that you're going to be having to pay in installments and so on and so forth. What would that do to, for instance, your take-home salary and so on?
I think that the mortgage should work, but they should give a certain quota to staffs. Maybe perhaps if the staff feels that he cannot go in for that mortgage and a loan system in the system, maybe you can apply for a loan and go for your size and just go and buy your land and put up the house down the mortgage, because the mortgage definitely they will take some percentages. And maybe a junior staff have worked whilst he haven't achieved so many money for his end of service, and he's taking a mortgage. I don't think he can go in for the mortgage. So if there's a system like workers should go and take a loan and go and put up their houses on their own, I think it's very, very fantastic than them. I'm a family man.
When you default, when you default payment, what it means is that they'll take away your pension funds, and so at the time that you'll be retiring, you will not have anything to take home with, because you'd have mortgaged your pension fund already. People take the money, and that has implications for your life after work, correct?
Yes, that also to affect you. It's always planning, like what I'm saying. You get me right? For instance, if I know I have a family, I haven't put up anything anywhere. I'm a driver of the University of Ghana, right? If I'm using my pension money to pay for the mortgage, I'm not having anything, and I have my license, I can get some car and drive and take care of my family, because I know I have an accommodation, I'm putting my head inside. Likewise, the cleaners are not having those kind of experience like we have those experience. I'm a driver. After his pension, what is he going to do? Is he going to do a security? Is he going to do what? So it's all planning. So what they are trying to implement, well, we prefer that you should bring it and let's see what they are going to implement. But what I'm saying is that if he knows that you cannot go for it, don't go for it and go and create a problem for yourself. That is all my also.
So he was making some points, and I saw you nodding in agreement that I mean your pension funds are at risk. I mean, if you look at it from that angle, you have a house but you can't eat. And by the time you are retiring, the idea is that you are old, perhaps weak, and cannot do any productive work. And so if you are weak, you cannot do any productive work, and then your monies have also been taken away via the mortgage. What becomes of you? Are you not better off, sticking with your pension funds, maybe still renting, and then eventually have something for yourself when you retire?
It will affect you, but that one day is good, because when you go pension, you don't know place to sleep. Because junior staff, the money you stake, you no go do anything. Maybe you there, so I go get land, and then every year the increase, you no go feel bill. But when you go pension, say you have place to sleep, where they take your money cry, no be anything. You can find another job to do and look your farm. Maybe that time cry your picking grow into you go work. Because the money all they look, I mean I get picking, for picking, I look them. This salary I go fee build house. If you take my pension salary away, my pension pay money will give me the place to sleep, house to sleep, it's good. That one then my picking go fee work, get me something to chop. But the time where I no get place to sleep, what I go do? So the house is good. But when they bring the thing cry, when they do the thing cry finish cry, the junior staff no get it. Even the loan whoever we talk, when they bring the loan where they take give us, they help us. Because when you be 10 years, they go cut and give you 5 years. The 5 years, how much you go get them? Instead of you get the person 10 years to get money to do something, they go take all the money, then they give you 5 years.
I see, but you see, having a house in itself is not akin to, as it were, being comfortable, because there are bills, utility bills to pay. There's water bill, there's electricity bill, there's maintenance of the building itself, and so on. All these things are not captured by a mortgage. And if you are having to insure, or if you like mortgage your pension funds, great.
You have explained that if they've taken his pensions money or SNIT money to pay all those kind of things, so far as the son or so far as the children or so far as the daughter they are there, they are working, they also find a solution to pay for those utility bills and all those things. Ours is that they should do it well, for everybody should benefit this mortgage issue we are talking about. That is my view. So yeah.
Thank you very much. They've been telling me that, well, it's welcoming news for them that somebody's thinking about getting them permanent places to lay their heads. They're only asking that the implementation of this particular policy is done, with exhaustive consultation, and in fact, by way of getting to the people who actually need it. Their concern is that perhaps the folks who are not earning so much with very little contribution to SNIT might not really benefit from it. But either ways, this is welcome news, and would at least assist them to get places to sleep when they are inching towards their retirement ages. For JoyNews, I'm Manuel Kranting.
There, let's get back on Zoom. Some of you have been sending in your messages. Let me roll out this particular story to him, because most of your messages are about the promises in general. So let's take a look at what they say on education. The party is promising to improve the free SHS while scrapping the double track system. It also says it will absorb 50% of the 2020-2021 fees for university students. Well, here is what the students themselves think about the policy.
Yeah, the University of Ghana are trying to speak to a few of the students here and find their own assessment of the policies that have been, put forth by the NDC. I'm grateful, ladies and gentlemen, that you're joining me for this quick conversation. I want to start with you. To my right, I have Elliot and then Stella. Elliot, you've heard the NDC, its flag bearer, John Dramani Mahama, says that they're going to take 50% of tuition fees come next academic year. That's a huge one, don't you think?
It's very huge, and I think now policies in Ghana has moved from development driven to a race of who can be a populist party in the country. Now, Manuel, it is very good that the NDC is trying to look at the burden that COVID-19 has placed on most parents. But let us take into consideration the limitations that the university had with even charging full percentage of the school fees, and let's look at what the university is likely to face with a 50% cut-off.
And the government is paying that 50%.
Government was even subsidizing the fees that we used to pay with the 100% payments, and we're still having challenges. So to me, I think a 50% is just to buy my parents off, and I think it's not the best for me to be hit with something and then I'll be found wanting midway.
Interesting. I'll come to you, Stella. Stella is on my far right. I'll come to you, but let me go to Irabna. Elliot says that this is just an attempt to buy off his parent. He doesn't believe that it's a feasible thing. What says you?
Well, then if this is an attempt to buy off parent, then definitely this is going to work, because with the impact of COVID-19, we've realized that most market women, especially who cater for their children, single mothers, have been hit hard by this COVID-19, and the government stimulus packages does not include directly these people. And so for a candidate aspiring to be a president, giving you such a promise, this is very huge for parents who have their wards in tertiary institution or final year students in SHS who would eventually enter the university. This is a big good news for them. And so for me, if they say they can do it and it's actually feasible, although we know that at the end of the day there may be certain losses, we would have to borrow to supplement our economy and all that, but at the end of the day, this is a good initiative to mitigate the problems that the COVID-19 has impacted on some of these businesses. Already some students of the University of Ghana had petitioned the school management to sort of give partial refund for residential and academic fees, and we didn't hear much of it, or especially from the university management. So this is a good call, although we could do better in terms of stating emphatically what the government, if voted into power, would do to supplement government institutions, because many a time we hear that we would scrape this off, we would take this away, but what system are you putting in place such that over the long year span we would have a system that the university itself can sort of generate funds for itself, or
be able to sustain itself? That's a good point. I'll go to Ebo. Ebo is just right after Irabna, and they're making the point that, you see, it's a good thing for parents because they have taken a hit from COVID. But point again will be that the NDC said ahead of 2016 election that it wasn't possible to give freebies like that and mention free SHS, but now free SHS has been given. Then the same NDC turns around and says that, you know what, we're going to give you 50% off, we're going to give you free laptops, we're going to give you free this, free that. As a student, when you listen to the things that the NDC is saying, how does it make you feel?
Well, so Manuel, the NDC's manifesto has lived up to its name of being, the people's manifesto, in the sense that it's at best populist. And so you look at the proposed things they want to do, and then it tells you that they are trying to appeal to the masses, and so that's what they've done. Now, with respect to the 50%, absorbing the 50% of fees, on the face value, you may think it's good. I mean, for the normal, the market woman, or the average Ghanaian. But I don't think the country is in the financial position to be making some of these promises. The president has been making out a lot of freebies ever since the COVID-19 pandemic broke out.
Exactly the point I was going to make. That when you say that it's not in the right time, to make these free promises and so on. The NPP government has given free water for months, free electricity for months, free hot meals, and is still running for senior high schools and junior high schools. So, I mean, it gives an indication that where there's a will, then definitely, it may come through. That doesn't sit well with you.
Well, Manuel, of course, they may say they have the will, but what's the point I sought to put across is the country in the position to do so? I mean, do we even have the money to be doing all of that? Because you're looking at thousands of students. Here in the University of Ghana alone, we have over 40,000 students, and then you can talk of elsewhere in the other universities as well. And so to say you are absorbing 50% of everybody's school fees, I don't think, even though it may sit right with a lot of people, I don't think it's what we need as a country now, especially when we are in debt. Government is looking at borrowing billions of cedis within these 3 months. And so we may be able to do it, but it will leave the country at a deficit at the end of the day.
That's yours. I want to come to Michael now and ask you. Ramna says that, you know what, COVID has come knocking and people need to be cushioned, and so it's a good thing.
Yeah, on the face value, sense of the principle thereof of COVID has come. And we've already set the precedence that because of COVID, free electricity, free water, a lot of tax havens, giving a lot of monies to businesses to survive. So on that principle basis, it's good to come to the level of one of the students' aid at the moment. And we know that we need it as a country. But coming from what my friends have already said, when you look at the country's financial status and given the situation we find ourselves in, it may be difficult to actually be able to go ahead with this. I need my laptop and I need 50% of my school.
You think it's ambitious?
Well, yes, I think that it's very ambitious. And what we're really encouraging in the country is he who gets to promise more, actually he gets to win the seat. So let's do more of that. I'm sure then months before the elections will hold, and then MPP will just say, well, 50% off for everybody's school fees. Then it sways the vote. So maybe we should come up with constructive ways of going ahead. Okay. We know that the category of people that are already struggling to pay school fees, which are people who have already subscribed to student loan. What is the challenge with them? CST money is not coming, Get Fund money is not coming. Should we not put more money there that, well, but you need money for this semester? Let's go ahead and maybe say that go to student loan. Maybe the amount of money you have to pay back in terms of after taking the loan, we should look at maybe
instead of interest-free loans, instead of 50% rebate.
Yeah. I think that going towards that line looks more like a constructive way of going about it.
I'll come back to Michael. Interesting points that he's making. He says that talking about student loans, I'm going to Stella, and the NPP has promised that it's going to scrap the guarantor requirement for student loans. The NDC mentions the same thing, but goes ahead to say that they're going to expand the base of student loan and make it a bit more accessible. Now, while doing that, they are also absorbing 50% of your school fees and giving you free laptops, you and your teachers free laptops. All these things, do they culminate into the perception I'm getting from this side of the conversation that it's over-ambitious?
Oh yes, I would always say that it's very overly ambitious, because right now we are having a lot of freebies from the president, and sometimes you wonder where government is actually getting these monies from to do these things, and our debt is increasing by the day. So as a new government that are coming into power, how do you intend to be able to finance all the things that are, and one laptop is almost, if you are getting a basic one, it's almost over 1,000 cedis.
And so concerns are already emerging about how the party can fulfill all these pledges, knowing very well that it will inherit an economy ravaged by the COVID-19 pandemic. Information Minister Kojo Nkrumah is questioning the source of funding.
Put that aside. We are all witnesses to the fact that when the economy of Ghana was given to President Mills, he didn't take it to IMF. President Mills didn't take the Ghana economy to IMF. When it was fully put in the hands of Mr. Mahama, he told us that they had chewed the meat down to the bone, and therefore they went for an IMF bailout, which came with all sorts of conditionalities. You and I recall, we're here in this country. Now, having seen how he has managed an economy, if today he comes back and he says that the first pillar of his manifesto is to restore the economy and cure poverty, we have seen how he did it in the last 4 years. Does it sound like a credible promise? And does his track record suggest that he's somebody who is able to manage an economy to a point where it can find the resources to pay for all the promises that he's making? Your guess is as good as mine. So we believe Ghanaians are very discerning people. We don't believe that Ghanaians have a short memory. We believe that Ghanaians are very discerning people. They will have an opportunity to look at his track record and what he delivered and what he's promising and do the comparison.
So many of you are sending in your messages, and I'll try and take time and read some of them. But again, the Information Minister is also asking you to reject the NDC's manifesto. He wants electorates like you to compare the track records of the two presidential candidates, and he's adding that the NDC failed to deliver on their key promises when they were in power.
If you have a leader who, when he was president or before he became, let's say, vice president, promised as part of his party's manifesto that they would bring a one-time health or one-time premium for health insurance, and for 8 years they never did it. and today he turns around to say that he will make primary health care free. Does it sound to anybody like a credible promise? If you have a leader who, from 2008 through to 2012, proposed the state providing free education for people at the senior high school level consistently. It won't work. If we would have worked, Kwame Nkrumah would have done it. If it would have worked, it would take 20 years to come on, etc. And today, you have the same person say that, first of all, he now believes in it and will now make tertiary education 50% free. You have an opportunity to ask yourself whether or not it sounds to anybody like a credible promise. If you have somebody who, in 2012, promised that he will pay assembly members an allowance, and 4 years didn't pay, didn't even provide them with logistics like motorbikes, and it took another administration to come and provide them with motorbikes. And today he comes back and repeats the promise that he will provide an allowance for them. Does it sound to anybody like a credible promise? If you have somebody who, during his period, ran down the Ghanaian economy, went to the IMF for a bailout, and as a result could not employ young people when they were graduating from school. You recall the graduate unemployment associations that were formed. You recall the cancellation of allowances because of economic crisis and the argument that even if they will vote against us, they should vote against us. And today this person comes and says that he is going to create, 1 million jobs. In 4 years, does this sound to anybody like a credible promise? So the first thing to look at is the person's track record. If you have somebody who from 2008 says, I will do free SHS, and he has done free SHS, and now he says that I will give a student loan option for tertiary, for people to go to tertiary, literally on credit if they can't afford, and when they get a job, they pay for it. Does that sound like a credible promise? I dare say yes, because he's done the first part. He's more credible on this one. So the first thing in discussing manifestos is the credibility angle of your track record. What was your track record?
I'll be going on a very quick break, but some of your messages coming in. This one says the NDC is really the people, has really the people manifesto loaded with good policies to alleviate poverty. I urge Ghanaians to vote JM. When your suggestion is considered, you feel part of the process. You don't owe. Batistuta from Damango, you send this one. Thank you very much for your message. I'll take a very quick break. We'll be right back. We'll go to the Bagre Dam and tell you the devastation it's causing there. Welcome back. The devastating effect of the Bagre Dam spillage is worsening in the Upper East region. The floods caused by the spillage and continuous downpour of the rain have claimed 6 lives, destroyed farm produce, and many homes in the Northeast region are suffering. Now, this morning, correspondent Albert Sori reports of acres of farmlands and homes in parts of the Upper East region that have also been submerged. We're joined by the Upper East NATMO Director, Jerry Asamani. Hello, Mr. Asamani.
Hello.
Hi, sir. Thank you very much for your time this afternoon.
Hello. Hello.
Hello, Mr. Asamani. Can you hear me?
I'm hearing you.
Okay. Thank you very much for your time. What is the current situation?
The current situation
regarding
is too bad. It's too bad because a combination of the effects of the Bagre Dam spillage and then the torrential rainfall has really worsened the situation in the Upper East region, especially the Nabdam, the Boku West, the Binduri, the Talisi districts. The situation now is that most of our bridges are blown off. The main ECOWAS bridge that is linking the Boku West, that is the Bila districts, and then the Boku zone is flooded, that the water has come up to the bridge and not in the entry point of the bridge. So that has been the situation now. The lower levels of the lower foot of the bridge is literally eaten up. That is, erosion has taken place, and we are afraid if the water doesn't recede, it might erode that portion, and that will mean the whole water flooding into the Kobore township, which is a low-lying area.
How are you handling the situation? What exactly are you doing at the
Yeah, what we are doing is that we have stationed NADMO workers about a mile from the Zebila side of the bridge to caution people to return. And just closer, we have brought in the police to mount barriers at both ends of the bridge, such that people would not attempt. The first day, that was yesterday, people tried forcefully going through, and now they tried endangering themselves. So articulators were carrying people to cross, and we had to bring in the police to do this, to prevent people from crossing. This morning, at both ends are blocked with barricades, people not to turn. And the distances that we have stationed the NADMO workers are to advise, because if you get closer to the bridge, there's no way you can make a turn. And that is the situation now. The farmlands are all submerged, especially along the White Volta, and even inland, that is away from the White Volta. Crops are all submerged. Crops like maize, rice, vegetables, tomatoes, watermelon.
So we know that at the end of the day, there are several farmers, there are so many people vulnerable already who have been affected by this. It looks like it took the NADMO a bit of time to respond. How well are you resourced? Do you have enough at the moment to reach out to?
It hasn't taken enough to. Disaster fighting has so many phases. We are on the phase 1, how to get the people out, not to be victims of the disaster. What we are concurrently doing is the relief phase. But the total relief phase is normally when the water recedes and we physically get into the farmlands, the areas to really do a physical count. But for now, concurrently, the houses that are falling, the numbers are being recorded, and relief items are issued accordingly, concurrently. Okay. So we haven't taken time to respond. Since the rains, the Bagre Dam was opened on the 10th of last month, we have always been on the ground.
Mr. Samani, thank you very much. But 6 people were told have died. Do you have any new figure from your end?
In the Upper East, we have 4. It is Northeast that has the 6.
So you have 4 and Upper.
We have 4. Yeah, one woman.
That makes it 10 in total.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you very much for your time this afternoon. Jerry Asamani is the Upper East Regional NADMO Director. Abesori is standing by. We'll get to him as well to see what he can report on this. But let's get an update on the situation in Northeast. The NADMO Director is John Kweku Al-Hassan. He's been speaking with us.
We have sugar, we have blankets, mosquito nets, soap, used clothing, plastic buckets, plastic plates, plastic cups, polymass, mosquito coil, mattresses, and zinc. We're just trying to dispatch the car to Maputo-Maduri district so that tomorrow the regional minister will lead a team for us to do the onward distribution to the affected victims. Because their farms have been submerged in water, definitely they need food. So we have to give them rice. And rice alone is not enough. We have to give them oil and then sugar blankets. Because the whole place is flooded, they need blankets. And then used clothing. It's also important, and this is a rainy season. Automatically, they will need a mosquito coil, and then mosquito nets, and then the mattresses. These are things that the people actually need. And those we cannot access for now. Yes, we are just hoping that the water level will recede or decrease. Then we try to do the assessment, because it's not even easy for we, the NADMO officials, to get there, because this is about the life and then death matter. So we are just hoping that the water will recede and then we will get there to do proper assessment. Like I was saying, government has a huge responsibility. So what government is given may not be enough. So we are calling on philanthropic organizations to come to the support of these people. So you, the media, can also help us in this regard, so that if other philanthropic organizations like UNICEF, Plan Ghana, World Food Program, and many, if they can come to the aid of the people, we'll be very grateful. But government is doing its best for now.
Let's get more from our correspondent Ilyasu Tanko, who's joining us from the northeast. And Albert, like I said, is also on standby. Ilyasu, let me start with you. What's the latest? I understand that your region is where 6 people have died. Has anything changed?
Not at all, except that there are plans by the National Disaster Management Organization to distribute some relief items to people that are currently in less affected areas. And so, as I speak, there are currently plans underway to airlift the materials tomorrow to places like the Mampurgu-Muaduri area, where we know that several hundreds of acres farmlands are currently in water. But what the NADMO officials are trying to do is to find communities that are in the high ground but in the district, so that they can go and station their relief items there and manage to reach other communities and try and help these people. But as we speak, the situation keeps getting worse. The regional NADMO director tells me that the communities, the main route from Chirpone to Yendi has been cut off, and so cars to take days before the transportation will be able to resume in that particular district. It also mentioned that roads to the West Mamprisi municipal capital from Pasingpe and the Janga area has also been cut off, and so these people would also take some time before NADMO officials will be able to assess them and maybe give them some relief items. Several other communities, as I understand, has also been cut off. Several of them, including communities around the Oti River in the Chirpone area. and also in the Bunkurgu area.
Ilyasu, thank you very much. Ilyasu Tanko is our correspondent Northeast region. Let me quickly get what Albert Sori has gathered so far. Albert, what can you report?
So today, the NADMO and police have been stopping passengers from crossing to Boko. And just like you heard the NADMO director say, we actually got the opportunity to speak to some of the passengers whose vehicles actually had been stopped because the police thought that it would be risky for the vehicle to try and cross the flooded road with all these passengers. So that is what they are doing. In most parts of the Upper East region as well, the farmlands are completely submerged. Some places are also cut off. And you would see in a place like Via near Bongo, for instance, what they are now doing is that they are using canoes to help people cross over to the other side. So it's a very serious situation because in past years when we had floods, we had never seen a situation where the water actually got over the bridges and came onto the road. This is the first time we are seeing something like this. So it's really very serious.
Albert, thank you very much. But just a quick one though, 4 people have died in your region according to the NADMO director that we spoke to. That makes it 10 in total. Do you know anything about these 4?
For now, no. Because of the widespread nature of this, the information is coming in bits and pieces. So what I actually learned earlier this afternoon was that a body was picked somewhere in Tono in the Kasna Nankana municipality. That is just close to Navrongo. This person, we are told, tried to cross one of the canals of the Tono Dam and was washed away. This is information we got this afternoon, but it turns out that the incident actually happened 2 days ago, and his body has now been found. This is what we know. So as NADMO continue their work, we may get to learn if there are more people who have lost their lives or otherwise. Very well, Albert, thank you very much. 10 people have died so far. The Northeast region, 6, and for the Upper East region, 4. Now, since Ghana recorded its first 2 cases of COVID-19 in March, pupils across the country have had to stay home. For children in urban centers, the internet has become crucial, providing an alternative to the traditional classroom teaching and learning experience. But sadly, not every child can afford to buy data. To mark International Literacy Day, staff of Standard Chartered Bank volunteered to help children improve their literacy skills through virtual reading programs. The company also provided free data for children from deprived homes. Asiedu Adai is head of corporate affairs for Standard Chartered Bank.
Standard Chartered as a bank decided to roll out what we call the virtual reading project. Now, what this virtual reading project is for our employees who to volunteer their talents, their skills, and their knowledge in terms of reading to children in underprivileged and underserved communities. September we'll be reading to 300 kids. This is phase 1. We are looking to expand this all the way to December, and by December we should have reached at least 1,000 children. We have close to about 1,000 employees in Standard Chartered. We are very enthusiastic about this project. We want to read stories to little ones, and at the end of the day, we want to be sure that little ones also appreciate reading. And this, by doing this, we actually bridge the literacy gap. The good thing is that we're going to use technology. So even as we read virtually, what we've done with our partner United Way is to actually give these children access to internet and access to even airtime, so that we can read to them remotely and engage in certain activities with them, little comprehension.
It's not amazing. Stationed at over 300 locations across the country, each employee had the opportunity to read to at least 5 children. Some of them who spoke to JoyNews shared their excitement and urged corporate Ghana to emulate this gesture.
It's rare to make time to speak or to interact with our children. And today being World Literacy Day, I got the opportunity to read to 2 lovely boys, one by name Jamal and the other Joseph. It was quite exciting really, because I don't get to read like this to impact like this to people. And the interaction was quite smooth. They asked questions, you threw back at them, and it feels really good to give back, to sit back and give back to people. They asked really intriguing questions as well, and it was exciting. So really, the experience has been amazing.
But it's been a very impactful session, and this is something that should be done not only yearly. For me, this should be done monthly, so that our disadvantaged kids in the rural areas will get the opportunity to.
And Gary Al Smith is standing by with sports next, and guess who he's talking to? The former Youth and Sport Minister Nilante van der Poy. Do stay with us.
I was supposed to be here 24 hours ago, but I couldn't because my colleagues on the political desk were getting you ready for the NDC Manifesto and all that it entailed. Thankfully for the sports team, we had flag bearer for the NDC, John Mahama, make a couple of promises about what he would do if he's brought back to the Jubilee House. Let's quickly see the highlights of those and then go and get some analysis on that one. So the big man said that his government is going to set up 1 sports center of excellence, each in the South, the Middle Belt, and the North. Also mentioned key among them to upgrade the Winneba Sports College into a sports university with campuses in selected regions, and said that he will continue and finish the new Edibiasi Stadium, which his government started prior to leaving office. So these 3 things are some of the things we'll be looking at. He also said that they will build sports recreational facilities in communities in every district, and also that they will use the Sports Development Fund to assist the sports associations, pay salaries, and improve welfare of local sports persons. And he also said that they will, no, definitely not. So that is what John Mahama, who is going to ask for your vote and my vote in the elections on December 7th, said his government would do. So we'll do a couple of questions for our guest, if he's ready. Honorable Ni Lante Vanderpoy, former Youth and Sports Minister as well, to get his thoughts on that. However, let me run you through a couple of things that John Mahama said as well. Remember that particularly for this last one, people have said that it may be a repetition of what we are seeing under this current government, to use the Sports Development Fund to assist sports associations, pay the salaries and improve the welfare of local sports persons. As you may know, during this COVID era, we've had the YEA currently have a similar project where they are paying 500 Ghana cedis as well. Let's listen to John Mahama speak on some of these manifesto issues.
We'll establish a sports development fund, and we'll develop a comprehensive national sports policy to outline the vision and strategies for sports development in Ghana. We'll revive and invest in inter-school and colleges games in order to develop talent. For companies that invest in sports, we will facilitate tax exemption and tax relief regimes to motivate private sponsorship and promotion of sports. We'll promote and provide funding for the lesser-known indigenous sports. We'll ensure the successful hosting and organization of the 13th Africa Games to be hosted in Ghana in September 2023. We will continue and complete the new Edubiase Sports Stadium, and we'll establish sports stadia and other recreational facilities in communities and in all the districts. Now, this is an interesting one. We'll use the Sports Development Fund to assist the sports associations to provide and improve remuneration and welfare of local sportsmen and women. This fund will also be utilized to assist teams that qualify for continental competitions. This fund will assist them to be able to go and participate in the competition.
So that's John Mahama giving us an idea of what he will do if you give him your vote. We'll be getting Honorable Ni Lante Vanderpoy right now, a couple of challenges, so we couldn't do that. But there are a lot of comments on our Facebook especially. So please head over to the Joy Sports or the Joy News Facebook pages and join in the conversation. We can keep it going until election day. Gary Al Smith, and that's the sport for the moment.
And that's it for the pulse from me. But Becky is standing by with Let's Talk Showbiz. You want to stay for that one? There's more news at myjoyonline.com when you do log on. My name is Gifty Andopia.